So last to speak today is Dr. Amanda Dunn from Highbury Holsteins. She will talk us through her calf rearing protocols on her family dairy farm in Northern Ireland. As a bit of background, Amanda finished her PhD thesis in 2016, looking at colostrum quality and calf immunity. So I'm sure her talk will be extremely insightful. So with no further ado, I'll pass back on to you, Amanda.
Thank you, Selena. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. So I've worked for Bonanza Calf Nutrition for the last 7 years now, but this morning I'm just going to run you through some of the calf rearing practices on my own farm. Okay, so a bit of background first then. The dairy farm's run by my husband and his father Hugh and brother Adam. We milk 130 Holstein Friesian cows. On average, they're lasting about 4 lactations, calving down to 24 months old. I get the job of rearing the calves. We're a tight autumn block calving herd. We're calving down about 60% of the calves in September, and we're getting finished up in November. So September does be a very busy month for us, but it's good in that you get a nice uniform batch of calves at the end of it, and the calves are within a nice age range whenever you're putting them into groups. We generally keep about 40 replacement heifer calves, and these are done to sex semen just to try and reduce the number of Friesian bulls that we get. And then everything else is put to Aberdeen Angus. We've had less than 2% mortality in the calves this year so far, so we're pleased with that. So moving on then, just to where it all starts, calving time. We've got 8 individual calving pens. So what happens is cow's moved into the calving pen when she's almost ready to calve. Calf hits the ground, the cow's milked right away, no matter what time of day or night it is. The cows are watched on cameras, and the cow is milked in the pen using a portable milker. The calf's allowed to stay in the pen about 20 minutes until it gets licked dry, and then, as you can see in the picture in the right, it gets transported down to the calf house as soon as possible after birth. We are quite strict in that the calving pens are cleaned out regularly, just because this is the first place the calf comes into contact with the environment, and it's been in the sterile womb, so you want to have this as clean as possible just to prevent any infection from the get-go. So this is the calf house. The calf house was built especially for calves about 6 years ago. Previously, we reared the calves in a house that was shared by older cattle. It was small individual pens, not easily accessible to be cleaned out with machinery. So we were having a bit of bother with pneumonia and stuff. So since we moved down to the new calf house 6 years ago, we've noticed much better calf health. The calf house, as you can see, it's an open front. It's 6 bays long, and each bay is split into 2 pens of calves, and we've used double cladding to reduce draft but not airflow. We've got a 1 in 20 slope in the floor for drainage, just to get nice dry beds. It is machinery accessible, just to make life a bit handier and easy cleaning. It makes it more likely that it'll be cleaned out more often. And we always keep a foot dip at the door and beside the hose, where everyone's boots on entry to the calf house can be washed and then dipped, and the foot dip is renewed on a regular basis just to keep everything tip top. So we are regimental on the colostrum. All calves get colostrum from their own mums where possible whenever they're milked in the pen. If she has enough, they get all of that, and if not, we do have a supply kept in the freezer in those flat pack bags. So all calves get 4 litres of colostrum within an hour of birth. Firstly, we try them with the teat on the bottle, and whatever they drink, and then they get topped up with the tube. This just makes it a bit easier for feeding at the next feed. I think if they've been accustomed to sucking the teat, they'll drink a little better on the second feed. At the next milking, then the calf is offered 2 to 3 litres of colostrum from the second milking via the teat bucket. Some will drink it, some won't. Not overly concerned if they don't drink it, as they've got their first feed of colostrum, which is the most important. So we're satisfied enough when they've got that. So then, first week of life, they're all individually penned within their group pen. We find this quite good in that we just split the group pen that they're going to be in up with hurdles and make sure they're all drinking well, and then we just take the hurdles out and they're in the pen they're going to be in. So it means they're not stressed by moving twice. All calves get a calf jacket, and these are put on when the calf's dry enough. And if necessary, then we've got heat lamps that we can add in as well if it is cold, but generally we're not too bad. September's normally mild enough, and the calves are fed individually using the peach teat bucket then. So once they've had their 2 feeds of colostrum, 2 to 3 feeds of colostrum, then they're moved on to their transition milk or transformula for 12 to 14 days. The reason we always never miss out this step is just for gut development and try and prevent scars in this first 2 weeks. And the cows do get a rotavirus and coronavirus vaccine at 8 weeks prior to calving, so we like to make the most of that as well, and that boosts the colostrum with the antibodies they need against those common scars in the first couple of weeks. So just lining that gut with transition milk, we find that very useful. And then from 2 weeks to 5 weeks, then they get milk replacer, 4 litres morning and evening. And then from 5 to 10 weeks, they get very gradually weaned down. Then they go on to once a day feeding and weaned at 10 weeks. It is a very simple system we use. There's nothing fancy about it. This year we invested in a milk cart with a pump. It holds 160 litres of milk, and this just makes life a wee bit easier, less buckets to carry. We've got a mixer tap set at 40 degrees, just so that the temperature of the milk is consistent every time. We use, as you can see in the right-hand picture, just compartmentalised 6 teat feeders that are hung on the gate. The height at which they're hung is important so that the calves are reaching up so that their grooves open, and they're fed at 8 o'clock in the morning and 6 p.m. in the evening every day, and consistency is key. Any changes can stress the calves, so we try to keep things as simple as possible and consistent as possible as we can. Then hygiene. We heard a great talk there from Alison on protein, and we are strict on hygiene when it comes to the feeders. Sometimes it takes longer to do the washing up as it does to feed the calves, but I think it is worth it. The feeders are washed after every feed, dipped in acid, and then left on the rack to rest and dry until the next feed. Then in terms of our own hygiene, with our gloves and our clothes and our boots, it is just important to keep ourselves clean too, that you're not spreading disease from one pen to the other. The youngest calves are always fed first for this reason. Then group size. Stuart touched on this, that of the importance of group size, and I think this is definitely important. Having 6 calves in a pen, it just helps you to monitor them, especially when they're drinking. If you've got any slow drinkers or any holding back, you can identify them as being sick more quickly. And as well, we've got, as you can see in the right hand picture, we have the solid barriers between the pens, and this works really well in that it keeps the house a little bit warmer, prevent drafts going up and down the house, and as well for the spread of disease reason. We use straw bedding. Every day they're bedded with a light dusting of fresh straw, just to act as a bug barrier, and it's a great insulator. And as Stuart has covered, nesting is very important, making sure their knees are out of sight and that you're not feeding them to keep themselves warm, that they have a nice bed to lie in. Dry feed, we've got meal available to them from the very beginning. We start with very little and replace it. If you don't do this, we find they just won't eat it. It has to be fresh. It's available all the time, and we start with the left-hand picture where there's troughs initially, and as they get older, about 8 weeks old, they're grouped into 12 calves per pen, and they've got access then to the ad lib feeder. Again, it's labour saving, you're not carrying meal, and the calves have got ad lib access to the meal, which is very important in the transition from milk to solids. As I said, fresh meal and clean water is always available. We've got the little ad lib water drinking bowls. This is great, but it is important that they're cleaned out on a daily basis, as there can often be feces and things in these, so you don't want them ingesting any feces, and need it to be available. Then you can see the blue barrels in the picture. Then we fill these with straw for eating straw. It's just to discourage them from eating straw from the ground. And you can see in the left-hand picture, they do go at it once the straw is put in. They do eat quite a bit of it. So again, for rumen development, it is important, and that you don't want them eating it off the floor in case they ingest any dung or anything like that as well. Then calf coats, I've said, once the calves dry, the calf coat gets put on. The calf's lower critical temperature is about 15 degrees, so it is important to keep them warm. The shed's not a real warm house, but it's important that the calf coats are cleaned in between uses. So you can see in the left-hand picture there, they've been washed. We've got a washing machine in the little outhouse that we use especially for that. And then they're hung out to dry. And that was just a particularly sunny day before September arrived, and got opportunity to get them dried. And they do be washed at about 60 degrees, just in case there's any disease like crypto and things can't be killed under 60 degrees. So that's just one to look out for. Then the beef calves, they're all Angus, as I said. They're treated the same as heifer calves in terms of their colostrum intake. They're in the same house as the heifer calves, so we need to just be wary that these have to be looked after as well. Aberdeen Angus is very easy calving. They're good drinkers, and they fetch a good price in the market, and they're sent to market about 3 to 4 weeks old. So we do generally end up with about 100 of these. So then, just in summary, with regards having a low mortality, I think the main important things are to remember when it comes to calves is attention to detail, patience and consistency. Getting that calf off to the best start and just being patient with it until it drinks its full amount. At the beginning, they're slow to train, but once they get going, they're much easier. But it's just important taking that time. Good colostrum management and transition milk is paramount. You have to get the colostrum in just to help to get their own immune system going. Biosecurity and good hygiene practice is important, and keeping calves as warm as possible with a clean airflow in a draft-free environment in their small groups works well. And I think no more than one change per week, it equates to less stress and less disease. So thank you very much for listening, and we welcome any questions.